welcome to the self-acceptance webinar, and what we're going to do is we're going to be discussing what it means to be accepting of oneself. Now, self-acceptance is one of those kind of terms that it just seems to be thrown around a lot, but not everybody really understands what it actually means. So I want to bring some clarity to what it means, also what it can give you. So let's just go ahead and get started. So the format of the presentation today is we're going to really discuss the principles of acceptance, some of the problems that people face when trying to be accepting of themselves, and how you can practice and so you can cultivate it. And then at the end, we're going to do a question and answer. So what is acceptance? So it's probably best to talk about what it is not, okay? So what it is not, it's not about approval. Because most of my clients think, well, no, I can't accept myself, because if I accept myself, that means I approve of myself, and I don't. I'm here, I've got a problem, and I'd like for you to help me with that problem, so I can't accept this the way it is, because I'm not going to approve of it. And it really is a false logic, because acceptance just means this is the way it is right now. You're not in denial that there's a problem, it's just this is the way it is. Also, you know, you'll think that it might mean submission or resigning it to the problem, going, well, you know, you just don't care that you've got a problem. And it doesn't mean that at all, okay? So acceptance, what is it? It's a non-judgmental perspective. It's about responsibility. It's realistic, but it's not resistant. It gives you clarity. You're open to change and growth. It certifies your okayness and humanness and gives you positive momentum. So let me explain a little bit what that means. So non-judgmental, acceptance just means this is the way that it is. This just is the way it is. It gives you the ability to change things, so you're not in denial of anything. It's actually the most realistic perspective that you can take, giving you crystal clear clarity on what it is. It allows you to be open to change and to grow from any circumstances, because it gives you that positive momentum. Most of your problems exist as you experience them because you're not accepting them. You really are resisting them. You don't want it to be that way. So you go, I've got to change this. I don't want it to be this way. And you push the problem away. But if you were to become very clear about that problem and go, you know what? I accept it as it is. This is just the way that it is. And you do that in a way that this is neither good nor bad, it just is what it is, then you're able to make a choice. So basically, acceptance means you act as if you have chosen it, whatever that it is. You act as if you've chosen it, because in a sense you really have chosen it, because it's an accumulation of all of the choices you've ever made, all the different situations you've been in, how you've responded and reacted to them. So you have actually chosen it on some level, even if you haven't intentionally done that. And it allows you to work with it and not against it. It means that you are responsible to change anything you wish, but you do so from a place of least resistance. So you get out of your own way. So you're empowered to choose. So if you were, I use the analogy in the book about acceptance, about accept where you are right now and not resist or be in denial. And so that means if you were to drive from New York to, say, Los Angeles, you'd have to accept the fact that you're in New York. And by doing so, you can begin to choose which route you're going to take to get there. Otherwise, you're going to be not accepting the fact that you're there. You're going to find it really difficult, and you're going to be unclear about what would be the best direction for you to set out on. You'll also find yourself kind of going round and round in circles, chasing your own tail a little bit, because it's just going to make it so much more difficult for you to have any positive momentum. Plus, you'll be suffering a lot. And you'll be quite upset that you're even in New York to begin with, which I'm going to be going there at the beginning of March. So I'm looking forward to that. But the point is that, you don't have to suffer over having a choice to make. You own it. You take responsibility. You accept it. Okay. So what does acceptance give you? I'm just going to peek my head back over here after this slide, just to make sure everybody's all right. Is everybody okay over there? Just let me know that everything's good. Okay, I think everybody's good. Great. Okay, good, good. I just can't see that window when I've got the presentation up, so I just want to make sure. Okay. So acceptance, what does it give you? Happiness. So acceptance transforms the energy that you formerly tied up in self-judgment, blame, regret, and shame. And it gives you the courage and support to be open in your life to wider possibilities for yourself. So pure potential, really, and happiness. That's pretty cool. What else does it give you? Acceptance gives you compassion. Compassion allows you, means that I'm human. It's my okayness, my humanness in this. So you're okay to make mistakes. You're okay to learn and grow from those troubles, to transform any trauma or challenge into growth potential. It allows you to be open to others, and it allows you to be accepting of others. So I'm okay, you're okay kind of idea. And you free yourself from expectations and judgment. And this allows you to be perfectly imperfect. And, because there is no perfection in this world. And I think acceptance is actually one of the hardest things for people who are perfectionists to take on board in their life. I mean, they can't accept it if it isn't perfect, and they always strive it. But one of the biggest false logics is that there is no perfection, and that by striving for it, and you can have high standards and such in your life, but if you are constantly, pulling yourself down and beating yourself up because you fail to meet these expectations that you set for yourself, then you're actually getting in your own way. So it really does free you up to have that self-compassion. It also gives you completeness. Now, this is probably one of the most powerful things. Acceptance allows you to be whole again, because there is no good and bad. And, it's not really about fixing you if you feel broken or damaged. It's really about making whole again. It's like bringing back all of the things that you have put outside of yourself that you feel that you need to have in your life to complete you. And that really isn't true. Unfortunately, you have everything you need, but you just put up barriers to it. So, completeness, acceptance allows you to be whole again. You'll no longer need the approval of others. You'll be free from the good and bad opinions of others. You'll not have to prove your worth to others, and you'll not seek anything outside of you to complete you. So, I have a lot of people who say to me, well, when I have A, B, C, D, fill in the blank, then I'll be happy. But the point is that the more that you don't accept and try, find within this present moment what it is that you can feel good about, then, you're just pushing happiness away, because it's never anything outside of you. Like I said, it's something you have inside of yourself. You've just put up barriers to it. We're born into this world absolutely perfectly adoring ourselves, complete, whole, and happy and joyful. And from that outset, we just learn different ways, different lessons that teach us how to be ourselves and not ourselves, and to interact with the world. And those are where those barriers come from. Okay. So what else does it give you? Connectedness. Again, if we're breaking down those barriers, then we are able to feel more connected to life and the people in it. So you feel connected to others and to the experience of life. It gives that buffer. Sorry, I just noted a typo there. Again, I should say against self-evaluation, anxiety of being excluded from social groups, and gives you feeling of belonging and safety, enhancing relationships, increasing intimacy and openness to feeling worthy of love. Now, that connectedness means that you just have that knowing. I know that I have a deserving, I'm worthy of good things in my life. I belong here. And there's a real safety within that, because I think, most of the people in our lives that are seeking some sort of transformation or change from our current circumstances is because we feel fearful. Okay, so I'm just going to look at my slides here and just make sure I know where I'm at. Okay, we still have more giving. Woo. Okay, so what else does it give us? Acceptance also gives us self-love. Now, I know I use the term, do you love and accept yourself just as you are? Now, there are two different things, really, but I like to bring them together because they do enhance one another. But you can have acceptance of yourself, but not love yourself. You just accept the fact you don't love yourself yet. Okay? So it does allow you to cultivate that self-love. And this is not the narcissistic, vain love you might see on, MTV and Geordie Shore and all that other kind of stuff. This is, that pure self-love about your worth, your value, what you hold yourself in your own esteem. So acceptance allows you to love yourself just as you are. And self-love is not the same as acceptance because you can accept that you don't love yourself, and it opens the door to returning from fear back to love. So again, it's that idea that, that pure love that we come into this world having for ourselves and for others, and that connectedness and that wholeness, we end up, creating those barriers to it. So it helps us to return to that. Okay, so now we're going to talk about what withholding acceptance gives you. Okay, so when you deny, you're in denial of that. There is either denial or there's acceptance, to be fair, because acceptance is just what it is. And you can continue to have that, and you can continue to have shame, guilt, hate, not all these things, but, whatever you identify with or have experienced in the past. So envy, comparison, jealousy, now that's a big issue with a lot of my clients. Sadness, depression, self-attack, self-abuse, and that's not like, taking a knife to yourself or anything, and self-harming per se. Self-attack is any time you have negative self-defeating thoughts about yourself. It's about, the negativity that you project onto yourself, beating yourself up, when you're hard on yourself, when you sabotage yourself. The self-abuse is really about the destructive behaviors that come along with that, whether that's using substances, overeating, all that kind of stuff. And the anxiety, stress, and overwhelm that comes with that, the sickness, the disease, and dis-ease. So all of these things come to you. There's even more. So withholding acceptance, life dissatisfaction. So you're just dissatisfied with your life, and that's a terrible, terrible place to be. Withdrawal. You become more and more withdrawn from the world. You hide yourself away, and it's because of fear, really, again. Sometimes you can get angry about that, and so you go around with a chip on your shoulder, and you begin to, judge other people, be hateful towards other people, really ripping them down, but really that's because of all the bad stuff that's happening inside. Or you can just go numb. Or you can be using behaviors or self-destructive behaviors which help us to overcome these things. Fearfulness and that disordered eating pattern, which is so common with this. Okay? So really, what this boils down to is that you have two choices in life. Fear and love. And I remember I saw the movie Donnie Darko, and I don't know if you have seen it. It's a good movie. It's interesting, and it's got what's his name? Jake Gyllenhaal, who's scrummy, yummy. Anyways, the teacher did this thing about fear and love, and I really thought it was a very simplistic thing when I first watched the film, that it can't, you just can't have just fear and just love. But I understand so much more that, there's lots of shades of gray in between all of that, a lot of scope and dynamic between fear and love. But really that is, the two pivotal dualistic poles to this, is that you either are living in a fear-based agenda or a love-based agenda. And that really is a choice of whether you are living either in fear or love. So I want to talk a bit about fear. So fear, what is it? It's false evidence appearing real. And I think that's one of the best definitions of what fear is, because fear is all the projections of thoughts and feelings and other stuff that feels really real, and it seems it's evidence. This is real to me, but it's really false. It's an illusion. Okay. So now we're going to talk about how fear, living in this place of fear, creates the problems, and what my clients and what people experience, what you probably experience, and being unable to accept yourself just as you are. So the problems or the obstacles to acceptance is that people are just frankly unwilling to do it. They just are unwilling to do the work that they need to. Excuse me. And they're in denial. They're in denial about where they are in their life, and they're unaware. So they're sleepwalking. I like to call that idea just sleepwalking through life. Or they could be a bit lazy about it. They just don't want to make the effort. They're waiting for it to come to them. Yeah, that one day that somehow, miraculously, they're going to arrive at the place that they want to be at instead of where they're at, without having to lift a finger or do anything at all. And a lot of that is about making excuses for yourself why you can't do that. I can't do this. I can't do that. I've got this problem, got that problem. And there's lots of different ways people stay stuck with where they are. And a lot of that's because they have a lot of resentments that they haven't dealt with. Resentments towards themselves, resentments towards others, resentments towards their past and people in it. A lot of reasons, and I use that term quite loosely about that, because everybody has their story and everybody has, problems, but people make choices, and it is just about making choices. So what other kind of things do we have? I'm going to go to the next one. So, okay, we're moving on then from the problems to, okay, well, how do I do this then? How do I accept myself? So first, you have to be willing. Now, willingness is key to making any changes in your life. You have to first be willing to do what you need to do to clear out those problems. You have to wake up first off. You have to be aware. You have to be honest. You have to, when the shifting, what I mean by that is that you have to really shift from your old way of thinking, feeling, and doing to a new way of thinking, feeling, and doing. And that's the effort. And that means releasing a lot of old patterns of behavior, old patterns of thinking, because that's really all there is. And you have to heal. Some people will need to heal some of their wounds, the walking wounded with their, badges of their pain of their past, basically. So that's how you do it. So we're going to get a little bit more practical now. And I have really created five steps to cultivating acceptance for yourself. So here we go. First, you have to be willing, as I said. Now, I like to begin using affirmations, and I prefer using I am affirmations because it's very present moment, because as I say, the present moment is the only moment that never ends. It's all there is, really. And I don't wear a watch because I told my husband, it gives you a false kind of idea of things. I know it's how we plan things, but generally now is the only moment. So I said, unless you give me a watch that just says now, because it's what I need, mostly, and I think everybody needs, is just to be here now, 100%, as fully as you possibly can, engaging with the present, because your past is really an illusion and the future is an illusion as well. So back to the statement. I am willing to see where I have been withholding acceptance. I am willing to be brutally honest where I have been self-attacking. I am willing to forgive this fear and see love instead. I am willing to let go of fear and surrender to love instead. Now, these are the statements which say, I am willing. And if you were to begin to say that whenever you were to begin this process, you're really setting yourself up for ticking that box, okay? So the second step is that you need to have awareness. So whenever you find yourself doing those old patterns of behavior, you can say your affirmation in step one. You do this non-judgmentally, objectively, with curiosity. I call it being the loving detective of your life, which means that you notice that you're doing it, but you're not going, oh man, I've done this again, because that's kind of part of the problem, isn't it, is beating yourself up. Remember, these are just opportunities for you to learn and grow and to heal something. So it's wonderful that this stuff is coming up, and as you begin this process, more and more of it will come up. And that's a good thing. Embrace it, accept it. So one of the other things is I am aware of my fearful perceptions, and they give me opportunities for growth. So again, remember, that is just information for you to learn from and grow. And the third step, excuse me, is surrender. This is about giving up the fight with yourself. Now, some people who are more spiritual or religious, they may want to turn this over to their higher self or to God or to the universe or whatever. And it really is, and if you're not, spiritual, if you're not religious, it doesn't matter. You're just letting it be. You're surrendering it all. You're going, you know what, hands up. I really need, this is where the kind of rock bottom idea is. When you hit rock bottom, it becomes a platform for your future, because you know what? You just surrender. And you're open, you're willing, you're aware, and you're ready to move forward. And it's an important part, it's an important step of the process, because you begin to recognize that the way you were doing it before just wasn't working for you, and you really do have to surrender into this new process to make it a new way of being, okay? So 4, shifting. Now back to this. This is a much more practical part of it. It's about, moving from those old patterns of behavior. So you focus instead on the positive aspects of yourself. So everybody knows what they want to change. Everybody knows what they don't like. Everybody can name all their flaws, but they very rarely focus on the positive aspects. So you become, a nurturer of yourself and focus on the things that you love about yourself, the things that if you, were to describe everything about you, but, leave out things that had anything to do with the way things look, you probably find that you're a good person, that you care about people, that you're a good friend, that you listen, that you're supportive, that you're loyal, that, there's just so many other qualities that we, hold those aspects, as a measure of your worth as compared to, the size of your trousers and such like that. So if you were to begin to focus on positive aspects, that would make a huge difference in the way you're feeling right now. Affirmations, using all kinds of affirmations, and it's more than just positive thinking about yourself. You really need to say it like you mean it, and because the way things sound effective. So if I was to go, you're a good person and you're really nice and I really like you. That's gonna, it's not gonna have the same impact as if you were saying, I am a good person. I am worthy of wonderful things. I'm nice, I'm caring, and I'm loyal. Now there's a difference in the tone. That was quite fun to do. I was kind of yelling at my monitor there. So, it's really about the way that you sound it, soft, gentle, loving, caring, nurturing, be your own best friend. Treat yourself like an innocent child, and I think then you will find the place to be when working. And changing the inner critic. And that, again, that goes to the way things sound, because that inner critic has a certain strategy. It has a certain tone, a certain pitch, a certain way, certain finger pointing, you should do that, how dare you, you stupid cow, all that kind of stuff that it would say to you. If you were to change that voice in your head to something different, like something absurd, your voice on helium, or say a cartoon character, then you're going to make real changes to the way that that affects you. And then I really love mirror work. And mirror work is one of those things that is transformative. I think people find it very difficult to do. They feel quite silly at first doing it. I tell everybody that they should just continue to do it over and over again, because it's quite difficult. You might feel silly, but when you really throw your heart into this process and surrender to it, and you apply the strategies that you're being taught, you're going to get the most work. You're only going to get out of this what you put into it. And if you do it in a heartfelt way, it's going to make a difference, and you'll realize how difficult it is actually to be nice to yourself. And that's wonderful, because you recognize that there's a lot of good work to be done. And shadow integration. Now, shadow integration is one of my areas I just adore, because it's just so transformative. Our shadows really hold within it so many gifts and potentials, but unfortunately we've buried them underneath all of our worst qualities. So a lot of this, well, all of it actually is in the book. They're in the strategies, and it's in, I can't remember the exact chapter. I think it's the second chapter. It's The Gift of Acceptance is the name of the chapter. And I go through each of those and break down those strategies so you can apply them in your life. And 5. Now, forgiveness is transformative because it allows you to let yourself off the hook, okay? It allows you to let go of any guilt, resentment, shame that you may have for where you are. And, at the end of the day, everything that you've gone through has led you to this moment. So you're in the perfect place to make any other future choices that will get you to some other place if you really begin to make those choices that will move you towards what you want instead of away from what you don't want. So self-forgiveness, all of it begins with you. You can't even begin to forgive others until you forgive yourself, and forgiving yourself is so much more difficult than forgiving others, to be honest. So again, it starts with an affirmation. I forgive myself for fearful thoughts and actions. Now, I use this all the time because, even as a therapist and walking my talk and having been do this and teaching this to other people, I still have fearful thoughts. I get afraid, I get nervous. I was a bit nervous about doing this today. But, I just say to myself, I forgive myself for fearful thoughts. I forgive this fear and choose to see love instead, and it instantly transforms that moment. And it's about being aware, and you can do that. Okay, so another one is I acknowledge my fearful perceptions, and they give me opportunities for growth. So it just reminds you to let yourself off the hook again, because at the end of the day, anytime you feel fear, that's an opportunity to transform that fear back to love. Forgiveness begins with you. And, the next part, what would love do? Now, this comes from one of my friends who was a Buffy, the TV series. She was a Buffy fan freak. And she'd always go around saying, what would Buffy do? What would Buffy do? And I like to use, what would love do? What would love see here? What would love feel here? And that when I find myself kind of getting knee-jerk reactions to things those triggers that pull you back into old ways of thinking and feeling, I always go, well, what would love do? And that helps me, again, to transform that moment into something. Here's another affirmation. I release my fear and choose love instead. Now, I probably use that one. I release my fear and choose love instead. I forgive my fear and choose love instead. Now, again, it's just about that moment-to-moment awareness and letting yourself off the hook. I am now open to healing. Now, that is really, forgiveness is necessary because it opens you up to that healing. And that only comes with being able to see things in new ways, feel things in new ways, and be able to behave in new ways. Okay. Right, so now what we're going to do, and I'm going to go back to the other screen now. And I'm going to pull this up because it's a bit more static, and I want you to be able to see it, but okay. So let me get to that page. Ooh. I overshot it. Okay, so now here we are. Now these are the things that were brought up on the Facebook page and on the YouTube video, and people were saying that this is their biggest barrier, hurdle, or challenge for overcoming, for accepting and loving themselves. And so what people have said, overcoming destructive patterns. Now, I think we really have addressed that today, and we've given you some steps that you can begin to take. And it really is about shifting from an old way of being to a new way of being. And that's the only way you're ever going to overcome destructive patterns is by choosing, healthy, nurturing ones. Silencing the inner critic. Again, there are some strategies that you can learn for doing that. It really is about having fun with it, to be honest, because it's the voice in your head. And some people have an inner critic more than other people. But you can play around with it, have fun with it, change that voice to something absurd. So, if it's saying to you, oh, you're no good and you're fat and you're ugly or whatever, rewind it, redub it, and play it back, but in Homer Simpson's voice. And just see if you just don't become, laughing it off because you just realize, I choose, I'm switching that fear off. And I'm going to choose a loving way to see this. Lack of patience. Now, okay, this is probably one of my areas of which I have to work the most on. I actually had, not like a meltdown, we can go that far, but I had a bit of a temper tantrum earlier today because it's kind of funny, I went into the bookstore and, they were supposed to have my book in there, and I had talked to them, and they actually didn't, but they had one of my, a couple of my other colleagues that I know, and their book, and I was like, and I kind of had a little hissy about that in my, while my poor loving husband got to hear it, it was just a lack of patience for things, because it is difficult when you set out on this path and you're transforming your life and you're doing all these wonderful things and you really want to begin to see the results. But, it's important that you pull it back into the present moment. Again, forgiving that fear, because it is a fear. What if it never happens? What if it never happens? But the point is that the time is going to pass anyways. So you might as well do it from a thankful, grateful place of which you can feel good and to really allow you to get out of your own way again so you can begin to move forward towards what you want without carrying a lot of that resistance with you. Because it's like a weight that you carry, literally. Okay, so comparing yourself to others. Now, acceptance will help you with that because you're going to allow people to be themselves. You're accepting of yourself, accepting of others. But there are some strategies that you can learn. Again, this is just about letting go of the fear of it, that you're not good enough. And, comparison is an interesting thing because one of the things that helped me the most with that is by recognizing that I was comparing my my inner world to everybody's like highlight reel. You know, like what I see about them is really, you know, I'm comparing all my deepest, fearful, unhelpful, you know, thoughts about myself and feelings about myself to somebody's like, yeah, ooh, spectacular, their highlight reel of their life. And it's inequitable. It's just not fair to do that. So again, using an affirmation in that moment of, you know, I choose to see this in a loving way, or I forgive my fear, you know, you're going to transform that moment and make that awareness to make a choice to choose something else instead of just allowing those fearful thoughts to begin to pull you down in that jealousy, envy, and comparison. Also, acceptance, if you were to do, you know, truly pure acceptance, you'd be like, you know, I accept the fact that I've compared myself to others. You can also use it as a fact that what is it about that other person that I admire? Because there's something inside of you, or else you wouldn't have been able to recognize that in that other person. And that's a really interesting thing about psychology of this, is the fact that your ability to appreciate something means that you recognize there's some trait within you that you haven't tapped in, probably within your shadow, that you have buried underneath everything else, or some limiting beliefs that you have. So mirrors, again, we talked a little bit about mirror work and how, but this is really in reference to self-evaluation. You know, you look at yourself, you don't like what you see, and this really is about challenging yourself to look beyond what you see and focus on how you feel, and to focus on the fact that if you were to truly be accepting of all of the lumps, the bumps, the flaws, the everything, and begin to love yourself like your life depended on it, love all those aspects, and that, as I said, goes beyond accepting. If you were to accept it, you just go, you know what, I've made all the choices which have brought me to this place, okay? In some way or another, I have chosen this, and, you know, I can accept it for what it is, or I can accept the fact that I can't accept it. Again, there's some sort of acceptance there. But the goal is always to really, you know, try to cultivate less resistance, less fear, so you can return to love and begin to love yourself and all of that other stuff. Because, to be honest, at the end of your days, it's not going to matter. Okay, you're not going to really be going, oh, you know what, I didn't fit into that size 10 outfit. You know, it's going to be about your connections with other people and how you spent your time feeling good. So, okay. So here is an acceptance exercise, which, you know, if you've brought a pen and pencil, or you can, you know, think about doing this later, which is, what is it about you that you wish that you could change? And so you'd ask yourself, well, what is it, if I could, you know, what is it about myself that I wish I could change? And then write that down. And then from that list of those things you've listed, cross off what you have power to change, because that's really important. If you don't have the power to change it, well, you have to be able to accept it. So these are the things, and then, you know, what you're left with are the things that you could change, but you have not changed. So you've decided not to change. So by definition of that, you've accepted them as you are, even if you haven't registered that. And it's a good exercise to do, because it allows you to, get clear, take stock and inventory, really own, so you can take responsibility of those things. And then of those remaining, you must accept them because you have no power to change it. So why suffer over those things? You know, you have to be able to know that you are responsible for everything that you experience within your life, because it all comes from you. Your thoughts, your feelings, and your behaviors are your responsibility, even your reactions to the things around you. And that's really all there is. So if you were to begin to live from that place, you'll be able to change so much and eliminate all those other things off your list that you cannot accept as it is. Okay? So I think from here, we'll go back to this page, and I'd like to take a few moments now and just see if you have any questions, because we're at the end. I'm just going to talk a little bit about myself, but I'm going to have a drink of water, and I'll just see if you have any questions about any of the things that we've talked about in regard to acceptance or self-love. Type them in, and we'll go from there. Okay, so we have one question that's come in from Linda. What could be a good first step? Okay, if you're meaning what could be a good first step for acceptance, is if we were to go back to the 5 steps, willingness is to go, am I willing to accept everything just as it is right now? And be honest with yourself. And that is really one of the most important things that you can do, because that's going to open you up to be aware of where you're not accepting yourself. Because remember, all of this is a process. So good first step, be willing. And, it's not about paying it lip service. It's about really active willingness to see it for what it is. So if you look over the affirmations that are there and really begin to check in with yourself to say, am I really willing to do that? And if you're not, maybe you can begin with being willing to accept that you're not. Because I think there's a lot of people out there, and if we go back to the problem side, you'll see that, there's a lot of people who think that they want to change, but they're not willing to to do the work that's necessary. And there's always a price to pay for everything. And there's a price to pay for staying the same, and you're paying that price right now. And there's a price that you pay for changing. And that's going to take you shifting from an old way of being to a new way of being. Okay, any other questions? Or does that answer your question, Linda? Is that okay for you? Okay. Well, okay, great, Linda. Well, Debbie, says that, it's very hard to accept even after much therapy. Tell me about it. But I think, again, you're probably confusing acceptance with approval, because acceptance is what it is. It's just the reality of the situation. And, I've been through not only the therapy that I deliver with clients, but a lot of therapy in my own right. And acceptance was never really came to the table. It's something I don't think any of the therapists really brought to my attention, but I know I would have rejected it to begin with, because I really struggled with the idea of taking responsibility for my life. And because it really annoyed me, really upset me, because I had a lot of terrible things happen to me as I grew up. And it was as if you're trying to tell me that I'm to blame. And I'm going to talk about responsibility a little bit here, because responsibility isn't about having blame. It isn't about having fault. It's just saying that I'm the one who creates my experience through my thoughts, what I think about things, how I react to them, how I feel about them. All of that stuff creates my experience of reality, and it's very subjective. So I have to be responsible for that. I have to be responsible for my thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. Nobody else can be. So I'm not saying that I approve of any of the things that have happened. I certainly don't approve of the people who hurt me. But what it's saying is I accept that has happened. It has happened. It has. If I'm not denying it, I'm not saying it didn't happen. It did. But I accept the fact that it's happened, but now I'm ready to move on and accept the situation as it is right now. It's not about approval. It's about responsibility. Does that clear that up for you a bit more, Debbie? Does anybody have any other questions? Okay, good, Debbie. It just, my heart goes out to you because I do understand what it's like to be in a position of which, all of those, it's just really difficult to take on board all the things that have happened. But understand it is a process, and you just begin with the smallest of steps and then just move forward from there. Okay, any other questions from anybody else? Sorry, my husband just came into the kitchen, so that's probably what you heard there, but he is making soup, so I forgive him. Okay, I don't think anybody has any questions, but if you do, send them through. Okay, so, okay. Okay, Linda, I find it hard to let go of resentment. And you know what? Join the club. It's not easy to let go of resentments. But again, it goes down to those steps about, being open, being willing to let it go. You have to have the intention. And, I do have some resources that I give to my clients that help to break it down and consolidate it. Because it's easy to kind of just go big picture, lots of stuff that I have resentments of. But if you were to get very specific about those resentments and take responsibility for the way that you think about things, the meaning that you've attached to it, so the decisions that you've made in your life, about the things that have happened to you, about the feelings that you hold, so the resentments, the shame, the guilt, the grudges, all that stuff, it allows you to begin to transform it. Again, it's about that awareness and being honest with yourself. It takes a bit of effort on your part, but it is certainly possible to do. It's that emotional weight that we carry. The book is really all about letting go of that emotional weight that we carry, which you end up carrying in your body as well, because I truly believe in the mind-body connection, and a lot of our pain ends up becoming a lot of the stuff that we carry around literally as extra weight. Okay. Any other questions from anybody else? Okay, I'm not sure if we have any more questions, so I'll go ahead. We've got a few more minutes, and I'm sure everybody wants to get on with enjoying their Saturday. Okay, so a little bit about me. I'm fully qualified, fully insured hypnotherapist and psychotherapist, and I have over 10 years of experience. So just in case you're wondering, I'm not just, a girl out there in the world who is chatting on about my own personal experiences, even though I have had it, and that was the next bit. I've been there and done that. I have, overcome a lot of challenges. I was actually 100 pounds heavier than what I am now, which I think is about 6.5 or 7 stone heavier than what I am now. And I have been the weight that I am. Well, I actually put on a little bit of weight when I stopped doing this activity that I was doing before. But I am returning to activity, and the weight is going back. But, back to my healthy default natural weight that's right for me. And for about 8 years now. And I'm convinced, not only from my work with clients, but in my own experience, that a lot of weight that we carry around is emotional baggage. And once you get to a happy, healthy place, the weight just goes. And it's quite miraculous, and I've seen it happen time and time again. And also, I'm provide caring, confidential, and solution-focused therapies. So how can I help you? I'm someone to listen and understand, identify your problems and the patterns which keep you stuck. I provide you with the tools and strategies, support, accountability, and resources that are tailored to you. And so hopefully you guys have all picked up a copy. If not, please do so, because you're going to find a lot of the details of this. But I'm open. I would absolutely share these things. It's not like holding the dangling carrot out in front of you. I'm happy to do that. That's what these webinars really are about. Unfortunately, I can't go into specific details of each of the exercises, but I'll just say, email me off list if you would like to know specifically about any of those exercises of which are in today's webinar. I'll be happy to share them with you. Also keep me in mind, because I do provide online distant therapy services. So I'm running that free week-end consultation. So it's no obligation. I provide you with some resources, and I give you a consultation, my feedback as to what is going on. Self-help companion workbook and audio toolkit, which is available from the website if you didn't want to or didn't have the budget to work with me privately and to hire me as your personal therapist. So anyways, just throwing it out there. No hard sells here, just so you know. There will also be, I believe, fingers crossed, a short survey coming to you at the end of this. And if you could just take a few moments, and I do value your feedback. And, I want to really make this something for you and give you guys something that is of value in exchange for your time. So please let me know your comments and your feedback so I can make sure that you're getting what you need from all of this. Again, you can email me off list or interact with me through the Facebook page. And I think that is everything. Any more questions before we finalize today? You can let me know that. No? Well, I really appreciate you. No questions. Oh, you're welcome. You're very welcome. And, thank you so much for taking the time to be here. And, it's really important to me that you feel empowered, because that's what I like to do most. So again, I'm going to leave it because I'm going to get into rambling mode. You can email me off list, and you can find my details through the website or through the Facebook page. Okay, have a great Saturday. Bye.